Welcome to the Social for Brokers podcast. My guest on the podcast today is a top mortgage broker who I was introduced to on the primary school. So Faye from Tranquillity Financial Services spoke about how she uses social media and branding to gain clients during the first lockdown, which of course got me interested because we launched the business in exactly the same time. I was drawn in by Faye's passion for using social to help her grow a business online. As you can probably imagine, setting up a business at any time is tough, but launching it in the very first week of lockdown must have been like, oh my God, what the hell have I done? And we'll kind of get into that as well. But through ridiculous hard work and consistently uploaded branded content to social media, Faye's come out the other side with a very successful mortgage brokerage. So Faye, thanks very much for coming on the podcast. How are you getting on?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, really good.
How is business at the minute? Because I'm hearing that our rates have been pulled left, right and centre.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to keep up at times, and the lenders do like to keep us on our toes. But yeah, being busy is better than not, I'd say.
Wasn't it? Did I hear something about a lender that pulled one within about 3 hours the other night?
Yeah, so I think it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon for changes at 5 o'clock or there or thereabouts, which is, yeah, it doesn't give you much wiggle room, does it?
What do you do? Do you is it blind panic and think, oh my God, I need to get everybody's pay slips in, everybody's bank statements in?
Yeah, it can be. I mean, I'm quite rigid in the sense that if I'm going to be doing something for a client, I get everything up front anyway, which puts me in a nice position to, be prepared for all circumstances. But yeah, it can just be a case of thinking, what time have you got left? What can you, physically do within that time scale and just doing the best you can, really.
And the customer's quite understanding at the minute, or I suppose they're a bit away from it, aren't they? They won't know what's.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think generally they can be quite understanding. They know it's not you changing the interest rates and that you're doing everything you can to, get what you need done for them. So I'm quite lucky. Like, a lot of my clients are just absolutely wonderful. So very understanding. Yeah.
Oh, great. So so at the minute it's a bit stressful. So the next half an hour, you'll go back to your computer, you'll have like 20 emails and it'll be it. But I wanted to start off with getting a bit of a background, a bit of your history as to how you've got to where you are today with Tranquillity.
Yeah, so I've been in financial services since I was about 18. I kind of left school early and sort of thought, what can I do to make a career for myself? And without any background research at all, I sort of thought either estate agency or banking sounded quite good, but I didn't drive at the time. So naturally couldn't then go and be an estate agent. And then very shortly after began working for NatWest, doing sort of like some branch business banking and premier banking, and never wanted to be a mortgage advisor. I was so adamant, and then bought my first place and it all of a sudden just clicked. And I was like, oh my God, this is actually really, really cool. I'd quite like to do this. And went to work with an estate agency doing that for a couple of years before then leaving and yeah, setting up Tranquillity during lockdown.
Oh, wow. What was it like that first day that you were like, right, I've launched the business? And then how close was it to lockdown happening? Was it before? Was it after?
So it was once it had started. I was on furlough for a little while and then got called back, and that was kind of the point for me where I was like, where I was at that point just wasn't for me. I always knew I loved the job, but it was Primus that sort of said to me, why don't you do it self-employed? And it was absolutely terrifying. I still find it terrifying sometimes now, because after, being used to have a salary for so long and, that sense of security, just dropping everything and starting something brand new with no client bank, no sort of specific, lead referrals coming in, and everything's on you. It's a big jump to make. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you'd set it up just at the beginning of lockdown, so you'd set it up further into lockdown. Wow.
Yeah, it was a little while into it. It was during sort of the first stage of the whole pandemic and everything being closed, etc. But it wasn't like from the get-go as such.
So when we ask the strategy question then at the end of the podcast, you'll be pretty much a blueprint for exactly what you've done to launch this business then.
Yep.
Without even being able to go out anywhere, which is incredible.
Yeah.
That's been the power of social, isn't it? But we'll get into that shortly. But the one story I'd like you to tell, because this is one I heard on Primus, is about how you got, and that's where you're based. Are you based in the estate agency that we're talking about now?
Yeah, that's where I am at the minute.
So you were talking about there was an estate agent and you were really hesitant to go and approach them to become their referral. Tell us the story, because I love this one.
So it's an estate agent that has a few brands in sort of my corner of Kent, and they were setting up a new branch in the town where I am. And I saw, the director had put his number in the window, like for staffing, etc. And I thought, oh, perfect, I'll save that and I'll give him a call, because I knew they didn't have a mortgage advisor. And then saved it for, I won't call now, I'll call like later on, and then brought the number up on my phone on a fair few occasions and sort of, chickened out, used to walk past it and just think I need to get on with that. And then one day I saw him standing outside, and was like, okay, this is, the kick up the bum from the universe to say, just go and talk to him. Just sort of like walked into the branch, had a bit of a chit chat, explained, who I was and what I was doing, and that I'd like to, help them with their mortgages. And within about 10-15 minutes, that was agreed. And we booked an appointment to sort of do all the paperwork. So yeah, it was great.
Your heart's like going 10 to the dozen, I can imagine. Just
yeah.
You walked over the road towards him and was thinking like, what the hell am I doing? What am I going to do?
Yeah, definitely. I think half the battle with so many things, whether it's social media or doing that sort of thing, is overcoming that fear.
Yeah.
Because the worst someone can do is say no. The worst someone can do is not follow your page or not contact you for an appointment, and that's fine. But if you don't do it, you'll never know what could happen and what could lead on from it.
Yeah, and I think it's quite, I want people to hear that story, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows, is it? It's not like you're going to get people come through social media or come through referrals. You do need to go out and get the business yourself. And that's exactly what you did. And I like that you say, I think it was probably about 5 times you said you were going to call them and then you didn't. And it's nice to hear. And that's exactly what, after this training, I text Faye and I was like, Faye, I love your honesty. It's very raw. It's my business now. It's not, maybe if you're working for somebody else, it wouldn't have taken such precedence, but
yeah,
my business, I've got to go out there and get it from people. The other thing is, for a lot of mortgage brokers, you could have easily sat there and thought that estate agent's probably already got a mortgage broker that they refer to. So there's no point in me having a chat. And you could have been sat there, you're in that office now, you could still be sat at home with 50% of the leads that you're getting right now anyway. So I just wanted people to hear that story, because it, like, my ears really pricked up when I heard that. So
yeah, no, and to be honest on that as well, I had a couple of conversations with estate agents prior to that, where I'd done a bit of research, found them on social media or their websites, and had a couple of chats that over the phone, because this was when you pretty much weren't allowed to leave the house. And it seemed like they'd gone well, but then either people hadn't got back to me or it hadn't quite worked out. So I think that as well added to the fear of then approaching the one where I am now. But I do think it's important, like, if something doesn't work out for whatever reason, or you do have a couple of knockbacks, just to keep going at it and to not let that stop you.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you did, and look where you are now. Do you still contact other estate agents as well? Do you still try and get other lead referrers?
Yeah, so every so often I'll have a little look around, or if there's new estate agents that pop up. This isn't the only one that feeds into me. I do have another one also. It's at the moment balancing the amount of leads I have with the time I have. So I'm hoping to get some admin support later in the year, which will, free things up a bit in terms of, finding more business. But yeah, I just need to be careful of not overloading myself at the minute.
Admin stuff, isn't it? It's one thing when we speak to brokers, finding good quality trustworthy admin staff that know the job is so hard to come by, aren't they? And they are the bread and butter of the business. They push everything forward, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. And give you the time to do those things, like, doing more applications, finding more business, making more connections. So yeah, it will have a huge impact, I think, once that time comes around.
And then perfectly leads into, you'll have a lot more time to do social media then as well, because you'll be home, aren't you? But my first question in this social media section of the podcast is just to bluntly ask you, how important is it to upload consistently to social?
So important. So with social media, and it changes over time, but there's all these sort of like rules or algorithms as to, what you're posting, when you're posting, the type of content, as to, how many people then see that.
Mhm.
And there's, a lot of detail that you can go into, but the main thing is, to keep it simple, is just be consistent with your posting. So there's been times, so for example, earlier in the year, where I just couldn't take on any more clients. So I put a pause on the posting for a little bit. And, it's taken a good few weeks to get the social media where it was in terms of people interacting with the posts and people seeing them. So, even if it's just sort of like a couple of posts a week, it doesn't have to be every day. And I personally probably wouldn't do that as such anyway, because I think you're then overloading people. And I think you've mentioned that before as well. But yeah, post or two a week, and then keep that nice and consistent, using things like the scheduling tools as well, is really, really important with the social media.
Quite interesting you said that. So what you did is, when you were really busy, you kind of stopped posting because you just couldn't handle any more leads. But it's not as if then, say in a month's time, you then start posting again. You're not at the level in terms of social media engagement. Then it takes another few weeks to build it back up. It's not like a tap, turning it on and off. Is it with social media? You need to be consistent for a few weeks before you start seeing results.
Yeah, exactly.
So what would you say, what percentage of leads come through your social at the minute?
I would probably say overall, I mean, even with having the estate agents, it's still really weighted towards the social media. So maybe like 80%, I'd say. Like, if it wasn't for the social media, I wouldn't really have a business, to be quite honest with you.
So you must get a lot of interaction through social media. What tools do you use? You said using the scheduling tool, but what tools do you use to manage comments, manage messages? What do you use?
So I do all my posts on Canva, which, I know you post a lot on, is something that's really great and easy to use. And then I schedule through Buffer, but you can also use like the Facebook Business Suite,
Mhm.
which you can post like a couple of places on, and that ties in like messages from your Instagram and your Facebook together. So it's a bit more consolidated than thinking, oh God, I've got to check like all these different platforms for messages and inquiries. So I find, the Business Suite quite helpful.
So that is a free tool that everybody can use, because I haven't really pointed this out on social. I say I use it quite a lot. And somebody messaged me saying, how much do you pay for that? And I don't think I've really told people it's completely free. It's called Meta Business Suite now, but Facebook Business Suite. And what it does is, I always call it Facebook Business Suite, it's Facebook. What it does is it collates all your messages, all your comments from Facebook and Instagram in one place. And there's an app for your phone as well. So Faye will talk about this all the time, and I bang on about it consistently, is always try and reply to people, always take your time, because that person might never have commented on anything on social media. They've taken the fear and gone, right, I'm going to post something, and they comment on your post, but then you don't reply to it. It's just do the decent thing and reply. That's what I would say. How often, I want to try and get across how often you spend. Do you spend every day, every evening on social, replying to people? How often do you spend doing it?
So I tend to do sort of like first thing in the morning, like a little 10 minutes of just having a scroll through, not necessarily always only replying to my own comments, but interacting with like other pages and businesses as well, because then, other places will start to comment on your things. And the more comments there are, that helps with the overall engagement as well. So you don't have to spend a long time, even if it's just like either at the start of the day or the very last thing that you do, for 5 or 10 minutes, but just, doing it regularly is the key thing, and it doesn't have to take up a lot of time.
So when you comment on other businesses stuff, do you comment as Faye Jennings or do you comment as Tranquillity?
Yeah, as Tranquillity.
Great.
So sometimes I'll comment, or if I've been to places, I'll put a story and tag them in it. There's lots of different ways that you can interact with other businesses or people.
See, I love that. So what Faye's talking about there is, say there's a local butcher's that you've maybe got something from, and you drop a comment on saying, look, fantastic service. Not only does it show that you're integrated into that local community, because if somebody saw that you commented on Smith's Butchers and you had they've seen your name tied to them, they might think there's an affinity between the two brands. It kind of positions you as a local person, doesn't it?
Yeah, so actually specifically had a client who I've helped recently who said, "Oh, I saw you comment on X business, and I really like it there. And then I saw your page, and that's how that came about." So it really does work.
Wow. And do you do that through the Meta Business app, or do you do it through standard Facebook?
When I'm sort of doing sort of like comments and interactions, I tend to do it through like the specific platform. So whether it's on Instagram or whether it's on Facebook directly.
And what would you say is your favorite platform at the minute? What do you use most?
Um, I post across Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram consistently. In terms of lead generation specifically, I'd say Facebook is certainly the biggest for me. So I'll do a post on Facebook, like share it to my own personal feed, but then also there's lots of different local Facebook groups that I'll post on. So whether it's like Folkestone's residents group, etc., and sharing the post into them regularly, people will often comment or then see my page and follow it. And even if it's not necessarily, an immediate client, I had somebody message me the other day to say that they'd been following me for a year, that they loved my page and they'd known for, that time that when they found, in their words, their dream home, that I would be the person to help them buy it, which I just thought was absolutely wonderful.
That gives me goosebumps, stuff like that, because that's what we talk about. It's not just the quick wins with social. It's not with anything. If they see 10 of your billboards, it's building that brand authority with them. And that person, have they ever commented on any of your content? Have they liked anything? Did you know who they were?
I didn't know who that person was specifically. I'd seen them sort of like my post. I don't know if they've commented before, but yeah, certainly I'll have people that will message me similar things to say, I found XYZ really helpful and it's posts I can see they've interacted with. And they feel, a lot more comfortable with the process through watching my social media and now feel ready to then, take it to the next stage and have a chat.
And they get to know you as a person. And we're going to speak about selfies shortly, because you do a lot of content of yourself and show who you are. And we'll get into that shortly. But when we're talking about post ideas, where do you get your inspiration from? Because that's something that a lot of people do struggle with.
Yeah, so when I first started the business, I made a huge list and it wasn't detailed at all, literally bullet pointed topics, whether it's like help to buy, life insurance, all the different elements of what we do and what we can talk about, or things that affect affordability, etc. Listed them all out, and then I just pick things from that list every so often. Use posts that I already have sort of made or templates as such, and then put the information into those posts. So it's already, the ideas are there, the templates are there, and I just sort of marry them up and then schedule them. So you're not having to sit there each time thinking, oh gosh, what am I going to post about today? It saves a lot of time.
And do you set a time every week, every couple of weeks, every month? How do you do it?
It depends, to be honest, on how busy I am. So, beginning of April, I sat and did the whole of April and into the first week of May scheduled.
Wow.
I don't always do that much. Sometimes it can just be for a few weeks and then it leaves gaps. So sometimes there'll be like in the moment things you might want to post about if there's sort of like changes or new schemes come out, for example. But I'd say, yeah, just over a month is the longest period I've done it for. But it's nice that then you don't have to think about it and everything just ticks along by itself for a while.
That's what a lot of people say to us. It's taking that mental capacity off your mind on a Monday morning. You're not thinking, oh, I've got social to do. I've got to submit someone's case. I've got to do that chasing. The social's gone. It kind of, I think it lifts a bit of weight. And it's the same as us when we do our content. It allows you to focus on other things, doesn't it? I like the way that you said then, you do like the pillar content. So you'll talk about things that aren't going to change, like how the Help to Buy scheme works, kind of what a remortgage is, what life insurance is. But then I'd be interested to hear, what kind of content do you fill the gaps with? So you say if something changes, so is that rates? Is that schemes? How does that work?
Yeah, I don't tend to speak specifically about rates because they change a lot and there's sort of sometimes more rules when you post about interest rates, etc. So yeah, sometimes it can be schemes. Sometimes it can just be like a little update on how the week's been, if I've helped like a client with something specific or helped a number of clients. And I feel people that follow me, because they buy into your brand, when you have had a good week and you say, oh, it's been great, I've done XYZ, people do interact with that quite a lot and people do like to see it.
I think on social, we think that it's quite a negative place to be, but with the right audience, people are actually there to lift you up. You probably have a few comments going, hope you've had a great week, Faye. It seems like you've been busy. I hope you're looking after yourself. Is that the kind of comments that you get?
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, with that positivity, if people then associate you and your brand with that, then by the time they come to contact you, they've already got, a really good feeling about what they're doing and you and have bought into you.
Love it. Yeah, that's exactly what we tell people to do is put yourself out there. You've got to be a bit vulnerable to people and show them that, yeah, I have had a tough day, but people will come to your rescue and try and build you back up. When it comes to posting and creating posts, you're like a big fan of Canva, aren't you?
Yeah, I do everything on Canva, that's built wise.
And the great thing is you talked about templates, but what's the consistent theme across all your posts? Because you use the same color throughout, don't you?
Yeah, I do. So I use my branding colors, which you can literally match the exact code to your color on Canva, which is really helpful. So I have quite a set pattern, and there's different ways you can structure sort of your Instagram feed so it looks differently. But yeah, my branding colors and then photos sort of alternates. So it's sort of like visually sort of interesting to look at, but also has a real strong running theme. And people are then very familiar with me, my logo, my colors, and they have that association with you and your brand.
And we speak about this a lot. It's owning your color in the local area. So whenever anybody scrolls past one of your posts and sees your particular color, I suppose they don't even have to read the content, do they? They're just taking in your brand. It's free advertising on social, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And the nice thing is, I've looked at your website as well, and this is going off a bit kilter from social, but your website fits that brand as well. It's little things like on your website, when you run your mouse over the top menu, the kind of like the Faye, when you run over so like home, about us, mortgages, it's quite like a soft transition, which is all about being quite tranquil, and everything just knits together. I assume that was on purpose. You want to make sure
Yeah.
that the brand that you foresaw how it would be perceived online.
Yeah, exactly. So that's obviously what I want it to all sort of be about, like you say, sort of like tranquil, sort of like nice, smooth transitions. And I post about, wanting to make things as like easy for my clients as possible and everything. So it all ties in quite nicely.
Great. And you can see it across, and I'm sure it's exactly the same. You've heard Faye speak for the last 20 minutes. You're very calm, you're very collected. It doesn't seem like anything could phase you. You might be going absolutely nuts in your own head thinking of 10 things to do, but it's how you perceive yourself on social through the website to when somebody sits in front of you, it's all consistent, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So selfies, this is a big one. So you are a big believer of getting your face out there on social media, aren't you? So talk us through, where did that start and how nervous were you the first time you did it?
Yeah, so it's something that I've done consistently from the beginning with my social media, because from doing a bit of research from various sources, it was recommended, and it all made sense to me really, that the more people see you and are familiar with you, and they'll feel like that they get to know you a bit more, which is really important again for that buy-in from clients. The selfies are a bit of a cheat, to be honest with you, because I started off doing a lot of videos, and they're the scariest part, I'd say. And they can be a little bit more time consuming because, it might take a few takes before you get it right, or you might tweak things throughout the process. But the selfies are a sort of almost quicker, easier way to keep the brand like, quite personal to you, so that people know who you are, without taking up as much time as the videos. But I think, yeah, it's a really important part for me personally, of getting that buy-in from customers and that familiarity there.
That's a great idea, actually, because a lot of people are nervous to do videos at the beginning, or, as you said, don't have the time and think they're going to mess up the wording. So a quick selfie. What do you then put in the content of that post?
So it will depend on sort of what I'm feeling on the day, to be honest with you. Sometimes it'll be a bit of an update of how things are going and what I've done. Sometimes it will just be some general information. I don't have like a specific, this is the type of content I'm going to tie in with a selfie.
Okay.
It just depends on how I'm feeling. The selfie doesn't necessarily have to come from that day. So, if, say, for example, like you've gone out one day and you think, oh, like this would be a good day to take one, and I just store them. And then, again, that's something already done, and you can just pick from that and upload what you've got.
Great idea. Like have a library, exactly the same as your templates and your content that you've scheduled. Have a bank. So if like one day you think I haven't got enough time to take selfies, I've got one there, pop it up and then write about what's going on that week. I love that. I love that idea. It's such a great way of doing it. And are there any other tips that you give people on social media of what's helped you over the last couple of years?
I'd say mostly just the things we've discussed. So keeping it nice and consistent, sort of putting your face out there. Sometimes running little competitions can be a nice way of gaining new followers and getting people to interact. So, if they like and share and comment on your post, there might be like, I don't know, a homeware voucher up for grabs or something like that. I've done a few of those over the period. You can link that in with other local businesses as well. So it can be like, prizes from people that you work with or know of locally.
A great way of doing it. And I hope everybody listening to this realizes that Faye's not talking about one simple thing that will grow your audience. There's not one post that you've done that's made you explode. It's consistently posting every single week, 3, 4, 5 times a week over the last 2 years that's got you to this point here where you're generating 80% of your leads online. So I hope people take a lot from that.
Yeah.
Before we finish on the social media section, I wanted to speak to you about Instagram stories. Do you use them? Do you like them? Do they have a benefit to your business?
Yeah, I'd say I do use them and like them. It's been like my consistency with that has varied throughout time, because naturally, if I've scheduled my posts and then I am quite busy, I don't always have time to share. But even sharing what you've posted to your story to bring people's attention to it, because again, with the way that sort of the algorithms work, just because you've posted it, it doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to see it. Whereas a lot of people will just sit and click through people's stories and watch them. So it's another way of sort of grabbing attention or posting about things that might not necessarily be part of your feed content.
It's just another way to get some more eyes on the content, isn't it?
Definitely.
So much. If I was listening to this and I wanted to win on social, I'd rewind the last 15 minutes, go and get a pen and paper and just make a note of everything that Faye's just spoken about, because there's that absolute gold in there. Right, on to the strategy part of the podcast. So we're going to pretend that you've moved, we'll say, to the north of Scotland. You've got a laptop, a mobile phone, and an internet connection. What would you do to start generating new leads?
So, yeah, in terms of that, it's obviously, there's nothing else other than social media. If you're starting from scratch, I think that is the absolute way to go. Obviously, having the website there does back it up. And there are always going to be those people that will sort of like legitimize something through a website. But depending on sort of the clientele, the social media is the way to get those people interested in you in the first place. Mm-hmm. So I'd say going back to Facebook, that would probably be the biggest one in terms of getting leads in the short term. So, because even if you are, 300 miles away from wherever, because of the way and the nature of how social media works, I've got clients at the moment that are in Cornwall, that are in the very northern parts of Scotland, that because of, the reach of social media and sharing things, it can spread as far and wide as you can make it, really. So again, just getting friends, family to share things, and posting on different Facebook groups, because then you're capturing an audience that might not necessarily be linked within your friends or family or that demographic. And then people will sometimes share from that. So again, that brings that reach out even further.
So utilising those Facebook groups. So even if they're not local Facebook groups, just using Facebook groups in general to get your name out there.
Yeah, definitely. So, depending on how wide and far you share them, sometimes there'll be sort of, over 20, 25,000 people, because obviously you can see it all from Facebook as to, who's seen your post, what interactions there have been, which, how else are you going to get a 20,000 people audience, it would be quite difficult, I think.
I always think about it as like a football stadium that I support Birmingham City, that holds nearly 30,000 people. As a mortgage broker, imagine standing on the centre circle and saying to people, I'm a mortgage broker, this is exactly what I do. Imagine how many leads you get from that one day of just standing in the middle. That's exactly what Facebook groups. And the best thing is you can do it to Facebook groups, which is what you do locally, to people that are in that local community that have maybe seen or heard of you already. And it's just reaffirming that fact, isn't it, with them?
Yeah, definitely.
And Facebook groups, it's completely free, guys. You don't have to pay to be in Facebook groups. I think that will change in the future, to be honest, that they've got to monetize it somehow. So take advantage, do exactly what Faye's done and share your content into those groups. It's one thing I didn't speak to you about, and I didn't know if you was going to mention it in there. Even though you're massive on social media and you push all your business through there, you have done kind of print publications, haven't you? Can you talk?
Yeah, I have.
The newspaper?
Yeah, so the newspaper that I was in was following and being part of a NatWest sort of top business in the southeast. So it was top 100 businesses within the southeast, and my sort of category I was in was customer focus, and yeah, made it into the top 100. So it was then printed in a newspaper. So yeah, things like any sort of like awards that you can be part of are massive, because then it reaffirms to people, who you are, that you're good at what you're doing. It gives that level of professionalism, and then yeah, sometimes it will be featured in newspapers or on certain forums, or like the awards places social media, so gets a higher level of awareness through that as well.
Just another way of advertising yourself, because we're so big on social media at the moment. Everybody is, but don't rule out the print publications, because although we like to think it, not everybody is on social media. Social media, like your website, is just kind of another weapon in your arsenal, isn't it? Get your face out there on the front of papers if you can, because you're recognised for it. Faye, that was incredible. Thank you so much. That gives people so much value. And honestly, follow step by step exactly what Faye's done to grow her business to where it is today, and you'll be absolutely flying. Faye, as a thank you, we'd like to donate £10 to a charity of your choice. So which charity would you like us to make it to?
So I'm a volunteer and committee member of a charity in my little corner of Kent called Action on Homelessness in Folkestone. We support homeless, rough sleepers, and vulnerable people in the community. So I'd absolutely love it to go to them. Fantastic. Also, being part of Primis, I can't not mention Pam Brown Mortgages and the amazing work that they are doing with climbing Ben Nevis and everyone that's involved with that. So I'm going to match the donation to their GoFundMe also.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. That's lovely. Sam Lappin was on the podcast, and he was saying that's where the donation wants to go. Do you not fancy doing it yourself?
I'm actually scared of heights, or well, not specifically heights, but heights that I can fall from. If I'm in a tall building, I'm fine, but big hills, mountains, can't cope.
Anything you can see over the edge, you just don't like, yeah. They're doing a fantastic thing. So when is it? Is it the 16th of May, if I remember rightly?
Yeah, I think it is.
Well, if they're listening, we wish you all the best, but we will make the £10 donation to Action on Homelessness in Folkestone, and you're going to make the £10 donation for the Ben Nevis climb. Faye, thank you so much for coming on. If you want to connect
Thank you for having me.
Anybody, your LinkedIn will be open. You can connect with her on Facebook, on Instagram. Go and have a look at her content and the consistency, and the Instagram grid as well. Have a look at her colours and the way that she presents her business online. It's fantastic. Faye, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
Speak to you soon.
See you soon. Bye.